welcome to another episode of Tennessee Fro is Reading. How I'm your host, Felicia Baxter. I will be talking my simple talk about this season of COVID and sheltering in place, and just some days just fresh out of thoughts. But there's certain things going on that you see on the news that you just have to comment on. Also, in addition to uncovering economic inequities and healthcare inequities, COVID also uncovers the jankiness of your own house and lack of housekeeping techniques. And I'll be talking about that in this particular episode. I'll also be sharing with you what nerds are learning, reading, and watching. Did y'all know I almost failed geometry? And me trying to master this 3D live action software is going to be very interesting. I'll be reading from you and discussing Leo Tolstoy's great work of literature, Anna Karenina, and then segue right into last week's episode of Insecure starring Issa Rae. I'll also be given a truncated version of my passion project, Hamilton Heights, episode 4, season of Thanksgiving. And I hope you will enjoy this episode as much as I have enjoyed creating it. And thanks for listening. So welcome back to this part of the episode called WTF, y'all, and how COVID uncovers the jankiness of your housekeeping techniques as well as the overall jankiness of your house. Well, most people know that, I don't know, most people know, I not only split my time, and even in COVID, the era of COVID, I primarily work in Tennessee, and I love Chattanooga. And I recently have found just how insulated or insular Chattanooga and East Tennessee is, and also how protective and pro-member and pro-employee my company is. But that's neither here nor there. But I've also have a home, or have two homes actually, in North Carolina. Don't get to spend a whole bunch of time here, but when I do spend a time here, I realize that you have to spend a lot of time keeping a home clean. You find out that you're the only person that lives there, but I shed like a dog. My hair, there's like tufts of hair all over the place. I know I have a big fro, but the hair that I'm finding and the amount of hair that I'm finding all anywhere is kind of weird, because I'm like, well, what's left on my head? I'm also finding that a can opener that I bought, oh my God, it had to have been 2001, 2002. Number one, it still works, but it's kind of janky though. And I'm like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm also looking at my dishwasher that it was actually state-of-the-art stainless steel back, probably in 2012. And I've had it fixed one other time. But I'm also enjoying the fact that it is also, I'm actually not interested in doing massive remodeling in a place or two places that I probably are not going to be in that much next year. My plan is to spend working hours split between here or somewhere else, or truly becoming an expat somewhere. And the only way I'm going to be able to change the complete jankiness of where I live right now is doing an overhaul, a complete gut at the sum of tens of thousands of dollars to myself, and I'm just not willing to make that investment. I don't like working with contractors. I don't like other people roaming around in my house. I won't make this go change it back into an Airbnb because the jankiness that I can tolerate, most people probably won't tolerate. And it's my house. I don't care. But one of the things that you will find that you should do little things about decreasing the jankiness. If the jankiness is tolerable, fine. Don't make the change. But doing little things like spring cleaning, getting up all that hair that is evidently coming from me because I don't have any pets. Changing your bedspreads, making your own breakfast, making sure that you run the finish, clean your own cycle from all that skill that can actually evidently decrease the efficiency of your dishwasher. Set up drinks and time to talk to people, to explore and to learn other things from other people. Because I find the more that I talk to other people, now, number one, it also helps me get ideas and create realistic dialogue for my passion project. But it also just keeps me grounded and keeps me from being as weird as always. And that is probably the most positive thing I want to say about COVID. Even though I'm discovering little jankiness in my everyday life, I'm actually having fun righting the wrongs. What I can't and I have no patience for is jankiness that it proves to be dangerous in the outside world. We got people storming the Michigan state government with guns and protest plan for Raleigh in Texas. And I'm like, y'all really? What the fuck? What's wrong with y'all? Why don't you just stay home? Are you basically, and I know nobody trusts the government. I get that. Because we got a bunch of stupid people saying a bunch of stupid things. But if we look overseas and we listen to Fauci and we look to England, we look to Germany, we look to not so much the Netherlands because they're doing their own thing, but they have a singular society. But anyways, we look to Germany and their efficiencies, and I give them major props. Number one, their location, or Germany just in general, is becoming a potential place to be able to shelter in place an expat in the post-COVID pandemic, because I honestly think that everything that could have helped us in this country is completely dismantled. And if the elections do go in favor of the Democrats, it's going to take at least 4 years for us to undo all the dumb shit that has happened in the last several months. But that's neither here nor there. But they have proven in Korea and Thailand, they all proven that shelter in place works. You have to suck it up and stay your butt at home. And you talking about opening up the government, and the people that they're putting at risk are people that can't stay home and they can't work from home. And the disparage is marginalized people, older people, brown people, and minorities work those service jobs that the government is proposing to open back up. You mean to tell me you can't come up with a workout regimen that you can't still do in your house? You mean to tell me that you won't go natural because of what? You don't need your tips done. You don't need your roots done, because who you going to look for when you in a casket? And you putting not only yourself at risk, your whole community at risk for what? So what if you have the money? It doesn't matter if you're dead. So shame on you to these protesters. That is the stupidest thing. Your civil liberties are being tested. and you can't work and you can't do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't really matter if you're dead. And then you put the rest of us at dead. We're never going to get control of this because everybody is feeling that they're authorized to wild out and just do dumb stuff. Stop it and go home. And then what also bugs me is when you got another second sociopath in command rolling up to the Mayo Clinic without a mask. And he says, well, I don't need to wear a mask because, I tested negative. What the fuck? You see, it's posted outside, all the doctors, everybody else in your crew, even the fucking patients have masks on, but it doesn't apply to you. That's what blows my mind about this administration. They think they can wild out. The rules don't apply to them, and then they lie when they get caught get caught acting stupid. How you gonna say you didn't know that you were supposed to wear a mask? Bitch, we know that you're supposed to wear a mask because you said I've been testing, I'm negative, and I don't need to wear no damn mask. And then your wife basically props you up and enables your lie. Boy, go sit down somewhere. And I'm so happy. I'm gonna be so extremely happy if number one, your ass pick it up because that's gonna take care of itself with your old self. But when you get voted out, we cannot have this complete flouting of the rules just because you don't think they apply to you. Sociopaths have taken over and they running the prison, and it just irks the tar out of me. That is the reason why I write so much, and that's the reason why I'm going to continue to investigate places like Costa Rica, places like Germany or New Zealand, places where the leadership actually has some sense, and I know that has good Wi-Fi, and I can work and still be able to create. And if I truly did get sick, I know I would actually be taken care of. The bullshit that's actually happening in this country right now, it is basically so depressing, and it would be depressing if I didn't have glimmers of hope. I have a bunch of great friends that I can actually now Zoom with. Zoom is the bomb, y'all. It really is. That is another way to keep you grounded. I have creative outlet with this particular podcast, and I do have the connection where I have a choice where I don't have to put up with a whole bunch of crap. How blessed am I? And that the blessings of a Sunday, of this day, and just of my life is just so amazing to me that I get to sit in my pajamas, creating a podcast, talking shit about stuff that I want, that I'm only interested in, and reading great things, expanding my mind, and exploring ideas and sharing it with others. And you can choose to listen to it or you can choose not to. But at least, I can truly say that even in this craziness, and even though I have no faith in the leadership, and I still have hope, and I'm still going to be happy, I'm still going to be able just to live and to live on my own terms. I don't want to hurt anybody, and I just hopeful that some of the things I'm going to say are entertaining, and you are going to find it funny. And even in this most craziest of times, we all can have this very similar glimmer of hope. It will get better. It's gonna be a minute, and I may not be able to enjoy it here in where I'm located now, but I got options. And that's what it's about. Building your life and living your life, having options that are the best for you and your community. And there you go. I honestly believe that nerds will rule the world. However, I wonder if they have a firm grasp of geometry. Hi, welcome back to this part of the episode. Nerds are learning, reading, and watching. And what is cracking me up is as I write my passion project, I realize that, and it makes me hopeful that we will get control of this horrible pandemic, or it won't get the best of us. Just between us. And we won't lose any more of the creatives, because I think there are great stories to be produced by definitely people better than myself. But in my solitude, if I can create and share my ideas with everyone else, then that's what I'm going to do. But anyways, art is a reflection of an idea that people want to share, and I'm hopeful that, at least in my attempt, that others may see this beauty. So, in order to produce anything like live action, or some of the details that we see in some of our video games, one of the things that tripped me out is just how detailed those things are. There is technology, not really plug and play things that you can actually create entire productions. You can't tell me that the never-ending stories that are in video games, we can't use that same technology to create stories for people to enjoy. So, in order for myself to be able to do any of this, I have decided that I'm going to attempt to learn how to create the set, the characters, and hopefully some of the motion that would bring Hamilton Heights to life. And I did do a quick Google search, thank God for Google, about 3D or technology that does exactly this. There is something called 3ds Max and Autodesk, where you can actually somehow take materials and objects and do just that. It does require a spatial orientation and a good knowledge of graphic design in order to be able to create this technology. There are whole studios that are dedicated to the technology itself. And I'm hopeful that in my time that I will be able to learn how to do this myself, and maybe, that could even be another way of creating and whole stories and publishing them in a different way. I think that's definitely, if I got the words and I got the imagination, why can't I learn how to create those things? So that is my new toy that I'm just learning to investigate, and I'm watching all the short little tutorials and trying to figure out how to use this technology. And it makes me even more glad that I bought my hacker level computer, because I may have, I don't know, I called the studio in Hamilton Heights, Katt, Hamilton Heights, Automax Studio, or something crazy like that. Maybe I'll give it a name like DAI Live Action Creator, or something kind of cool like that, or Tweety Bird, or Tweety Animation Inc. TNFro Animation Inc. I kind of like that. So, you may be seeing a short of my own live action creation in due time. So, in preparation for this particular part of the segment, I will be reading from you a selection or a section of Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina. Evidently, I have a pretty extensive classic library that I started years ago, at least over a decade ago. There was a offer through the Eastern Press in which you could purchase, get monthly delivery of the 100 greatest books of all time. So I think I've only gotten about 40 or 50, but within this collection, I have Jane Austen's, all of her selections, including Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice. I also found out that I actually had Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina. I like the original movie version with, what's it, Vivian Lee of Gone with the Wind fame. And even, no, it wasn't Audrey Hepburn. That was War and Peace, another great Tolstoy work of literature. But I had never read the original version of this before Corona. So I guess great things happen again with Corona. The book itself is from a great translation, evidently, and it is prefaced by a critique as well as just he's been this author. What's his name? I think it's on the last page. The introduction is written by someone by the name of Lionel Trilling that gives his opinion on how great this particular book is. And he says, and even before that, they give a little blurb about the history of Tolstoy, who was born of Russian royalty, very privileged life, and then married. His wife had a whole bunch of kids. Initially, he was happy and very productive. And he was actually he was already rich because because of his inheritance. But later on in his life, he went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. He created his own religion, became a hermit, and turned away from the lifestyle that his inheritance and his art afforded him. That's some privileged BS right there, which I don't get. But getting back to Anna Karenina, I was struck by it's the later movies. Let's go back to that. The later movies was more, I think, realistic in the character, the Anna character. It also, they cut out a lot of the uh, fallacy, and how Oblensky, who's cheated on his wife, that's actually Anna's brother. And I think his wife, Alexandra, actually suffered from postpartum depression, because they said she was at once very beautiful, but as after she had like 5, 6, 7 kids, her hair was limp, and her face was wasted, and she had that drawn look of someone who put the cares of her family before herself. And he also wrote that in Tolstoy, the family is an actuality. Parenthood is a real and not a symbolic condition. The affections truly exist and may be spoken of without embarrassment, and as matters of interest. Love waxes and wanes, is tender or quarrelsome, but is always something more than a metaphor. The biological continuity is a fact, not as in James Joyce's touchingly schematic affirmations, but simply an escape. This at the period of time, which I think was this 18th century Russia, is a true reflection of the family. Even though it is written from a different time, I think there's applicability when you're in close quarters with your family, and you have to become realistic with choices and what you will accept within the family unit is definitely reflected in this work of literature. And with that said, I will read from you a section from Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. So, an introduction to Daria Alexandrovna. In a dressing gown, and with her now scanty hair, once luxuriant and beautiful, fastened up with hairpins on the nape of her neck with a sunken, thin face and large, startled eyes, which looked prominent from the thinness of her face, was standing among a litter of all sorts of things scattered all over the room, before an open bureau from which she was taking something. Hearing her husband's step, she stopped, looking towards the door and trying in vain to give her features a severe and contemptuous expression. She felt she was afraid of him and afraid of the coming interview. She was just attempting to do what she had attempted to do 10 times already in these last 3 days, to sort out the children's things and her own so as to take them to her mother's. And again, she could not bring herself to do this. But now again, as each time before, she kept saying to herself that things cannot go on like this, that she must undertake something, punish him, put him to shame, avenge on him some little part of at least the suffering she had caused her. She still continued to tell herself that she should leave him, but she was conscious that this was impossible. It was impossible because she could not get out of the habit of regarding him as her husband and of loving him. See, that's the problem. She's so in love with this dude that cared so little for their union by screwing the French maid, but that's neither here nor there. Besides this, she realized that if even here in her own house she could hardly manage to look after her 5 children properly, they would be still worse off where she was going with all of them. As it was, even in the course of these 3 days, the youngest was unwell from being given unwholesome soup, and the others had almost gone without their dinner the day before. She was conscious that it was impossible to go away, but cheating herself, she went on all the same sorting of her things and pretending she was going. Seeing her husband, she dropped her hands into the drawer of the bureau as though looking for something, and only looked around at him when he came quite up to her. But her face, to which she had tried to give a severe and resolute expression, expressed bewilderment and suffering. "Dolly," he said in a subdued and timid voice. He had hunched up his shoulders and tried to look pitiful and humble, but for all that he was radiant with freshness and health. In a rapid glance, she scanned his figure, beaming with freshness and health. Yes, he is happy and content, she thought, while and that disgusting good nature which everyone likes him for and praises, I hate that good nature of his, she thought. Her mouth stiffened, the muscles of the cheek trembled on the right side of her pale, nervous face. She got a tick like I do when I hear the birth bells in the hospital. "What do you want?" she said in a rapid, deep, and unnatural voice. "Dolly, Anna is coming today." "Well, what is that to me? I can't see her." "But you must really, Dolly." Go away, go away, go away," she shrieked without looking at him, as though this shriek were called up by a physical pain. Stepan Arkadyevitch could be calm when he thought of his wife. He could hope that everything would come around as Marty had expressed it, and had been able to go on reading his paper and drinking his coffee. But when he saw her tortured, suffering face, heard the tone of her voice, submissive to fate and full of despair, his breath was cut short, and a lump came to his throat, and his eyes began to shine with tears. "My God, what have I done? Dolly, for God's sake." You know he could not go on. There was a sob in his throat. She shut the bureau with a slam and glanced at him. "Dolly, what can I say? One thing, forgive me. Remember, cannot 9 years of our life atone for an instant?" She dropped her eyes and listened, expecting what he would say, and as if beseeching him in some way or other to make her believe differently. "Instant of passion," he said, and would have gone on, but at the word, at a pang of physical pain, her lips stiffened again, and again her muscles of her right cheek worked. "Go away, go out of the room," she shrieked, still more shrilly, "and don't you talk to me of your passions and your violences." She tried to go out, but tottered and clung to the back of the chair to support herself. His face relaxed, his lip became puffy, tears welled up in his eyes. Dolly, he said, sobbing now, for mercy's sake, think of the children. They're not to blame. I'm to blame. Punish me then and make me expiate my fault. Anything I can do, I'm ready to do. I'm to blame. No words can express how much I'm to blame. But Dolly, forgive me. She sat down. He listened to her hard, heavy breathing, and he was unutterably sorry for her. She made several attempts to speak, but could not. He waited. You remember the children, Steva, to play with them, but I remember, and know that they go to ruin now. She said obviously one of the phrases she had more than once repeated to herself in the course of the last 3 days. She called him Stephen. He glanced at her with gratitude and moved to take her hand, but she drew back from him with aversion. I remember the children, and for the reason I would do anything in the world to save them, but I don't myself know the means. By taking them away from their father or leaving them a vicious father. Yes, a vicious father. Tell me, after what has happened, can we live together? Is that possible? Do tell me, is it possible? She repeated, raising her voice. After my husband, the father of my children, enters into a love affair with his own children's governess. Oh, this is worse than Jude Law. And on a Schwarzenegger, so there's precedence. But what's to be done? What's to be done, he kept saying in a pitiful voice, not knowing what he was saying as his head sank lower and lower. You are loathsome to me, repulsive, she shrieked, getting more and more heated. Your tears mean nothing. You have never loved me. You have neither a heart nor a sense of honor. You are hateful to me, disgusting, a stranger. Yes, a complete stranger. With pain and wrath, she uttered the word so terrible to herself. Stranger. He looked at her, and the fury expressed in her face alarmed and amazed him. He did not understand that it was his pity for her that exasperated her. She saw in him compassion for her, but not love. No, she hates me. She will not forgive me, he thought. It is awful, awful, he said. At that moment in the next room, a child began to cry, probably had fallen down. Daria Alexandrovna listened, and her face suddenly softened. She seemed pulling herself together for a few seconds as though she did not know where she was nor what she was doing, and getting up rapidly, she moved towards the door. Well, she loves my child, he said, noticed the change of her face at the child's cry. My child, how can she hate me then? Dolly, one word more, he said, following her. If you follow me, I will call in the servants and the children. Let them all know you are a scoundrel. I'm going away at once, and you may live here with your mistress. And she went out, slamming the door. Stefan Arkadevich, who she called Steva, mopped his face with a subdued tread and walked out the door. I walked out the room. Matvey says everything will come round, and how? I don't see the least chance of it. Ah, how horrible it is, and how vulgarly she shouted. He said to himself, remember her shrieking her words, scoundrel and mistress. And very likely the maids were listening. Horribly, vulgar, horribly. Stepan stood a few seconds alone, wiped his eyes, thrust out his chest, and walked out of the room. It was Friday, and in the dining room, the watchmaker, a German, was winding up the clock. Stepan remembered his joke about this punctual bald watchmaker, that the German was wound up for a whole lifetime himself to wind up watches, and he smiled. Stepan was fond of a nice joke, and maybe it will come around. That's a good expression, come round. I must tell that. Matvey, he shouted, arrange everything with Maria in the sitting room for Anna, he said to Matvey when he came in. Yes, sir. Stepan put on his fur coat and went out the front steps. You won't dine at home? Said Matvey, seeing him off. It all depends. But here's for the housekeeping, he said, taking 10 rubles from his pocketbook. Will it be enough? Enough or not enough? We must make it do, said Matvey, slamming the carriage door and going back up the steps. Daria, meanwhile, having pacified the child and knowing from the sound of the carriage that he had gone off, went back to her bedroom. It was here only refuge from the household cares, which crowded upon her directly she went out from it. Even now, in the short time she had been in the nursery, the English governess and Matriona Filomonova has succeeded in putting several questions to her, which did not admit of delay, and which only she could answer. What were the children to put on for their walk? Should they have any milk? Should not a new cook be sent for? Oh, let me alone, she said, and going back to her bedroom. She sat down in the same place she had occupied when talking to her husband, clasping tightly her thin hands, her rings slipping down on her bony fingers and fell to going over her recollections of the entire interview. He is gone, but what has he finally arrived at with her? Can it be he sees her? Why didn't I ask him? No, reconciliation is impossible. Even if we remain in the same house, we are strangers forever. She repeated again, and with special significance, the words so dreadful to her. And how I loved him, my God, how I loved him. How I loved him, and now I don't. And now don't I love him? Don't I love him more than before? The most horrible thing is, she began but did not finish her thought, because Matryoshka Femalova put her head in at the door. Let us send for my brother, she said. He can get a dinner anyway, or we shall have the children getting nothing to eat till 6 again like yesterday. Very well, I will come directly and see about it, but did you send for some new milk? And Daria plunged into the duties of the day and drowned her grief in them for a time. This is like what women do. They carry on, and they put their own grief and own cares on hold, thinking it's for the survival of the family and not knowing that this, not allowing themselves to grieve or to heal, will eventually not only hurt themselves but their family. It will be great if she could get her mind straight and then come out on the other side stronger. And that's why I'm very excited about reading the rest of the book to see. I kind of know how it comes out because I've watched several versions of the movie, but how a woman of class pulls herself together for the good of her children and for the good of herself, and how she comes out stronger on the other end. So like nachos, uno, dos, no tres, dados. We got 50 second lines in the lotto. Big chop like a nigga off the pato. Still getting queso like nachos. Hit it from the back, then I tell her no mas. She a freak, have to tell a bitch hola. That is Uno from MGA on the one of the mini songs on Insecure this week. That's right, y'all. I went from Leo Tolstoy to probably one of the best written series on TV as it stands. I love Issa Rae in her written and partially produced series Insecure. It's for us and about us. I watched it, and I don't have a whole bunch of dissections about how it just makes me feel so good, and I wish Errol's series was this good. One of the things that I did notice, which really kills me, is how the music is well suited for this series. Uno is one of those songs, and I could have swore, I don't know if they have changed the musical director or they have succeeded and they just have somebody that's just like me. What? Look at me. That's by Polios and Radio. Oh, but these are just samples of the songs that they actually play on the series. And I'm going to pause it there because music can be a little distracting and I have ADD. But anyways, the premise of this particular show is you see how it starts out, that when Issa Rae says, I don't fuck with Molly like that anymore. So why? If you look through or re-look through the previous 3 seasons, you see that they actually have a pretty kind of nasty relationship, and they say some really crude things to each other. And so them having the fight being torn apart by some stupid ish this season, it doesn't make a whole bunch of sense to me. But they also prove how really best friends, and it seems like they've been friends for a very long period of time, from the time that they were teenagers. Um, it you they show massive growth, and how they grew together and became, in some respects, really close. The latest crisis show how, in their efforts to grow up, they themselves have grown apart. Secrets. Molly doesn't feel comfortable telling, or she feels bad about the successful working relationship she actually has with her ex boyfriend, who she cheated on, new girlfriend, because she doesn't feel that Molly would understand. She shares it with everybody else, including her gay brother, but she won't share it with her girl. I find that interesting. Also, Molly doesn't feel comfortable uh, sharing how, um, and I'm sad he cut his hair, but how her finally having a successful and sharing and caring relationship with the Asian dude, she doesn't feel comfortable sharing how good she feels with that, because they always got smacked to talk to each other. And with all the things that they've gone through, you would think that they would feel comfortable sharing success. But is that the basis of their relationship? Now think about this. When they actually are closer, when they all gone through fits, they feel more comfortable talking to each other when things are going bad, but they don't feel comfortable sharing when things are going good and successful. A little bit of it could be jealousy, because Molly may feel that she's being replaced as the best friend of Issa by the Condola character, and vice versa. Issa's character is being replaced by Andrew. How also we see how Molly, she basically has to work through her father cheating on her mother. Um, they realize they also we also see Molly's brothers, who seems to be niggas for life. They're so ghetto, but they're actually really funny, and they're so different than Molly's character. You can tell Molly is straight out of Compton, but she works hard to recreate herself and to be a totally different Molly from the hood. And it is also obvious that Molly and, oh, excuse me, Issa and Lawrence are not over each other. They have little secret couple talk and jokes that they still can share with each other, but they need to realize that the best versions of each other are when they're separate. So why would they take and risk currently all the work that they've done on each other or themselves, risk getting back together? That's what cracks me up with couples, how they think that, oh, that person looks really good now, but they ain't with you. You gave up the benefits, and they didn't start growing until they left you. So it would be a big mistake for them to get back together. But I think that's what they're going to have to go through that, and before they're going to realize and almost destroy each other again, and not realize that there was a reason why they broke up. There was a reason why it out of 5 years Molly cheated, and there was a reason why Lawrence is not the great guy. He couldn't be that great guy with her. Was there something missing or smothering that wouldn't allow him to grow? And he needs to stay exactly where he is with Condola, instead of being stupid and going back to what is comfortable, because it wouldn't be fair to any of them if they were to get back together. I'm just saying. And that's just me. And I'm looking forward to how they're going to explore this, in the upcoming episodes, because I don't know if even Molly's ex is going to pop his head back up, the one that had the open relationship, how her relationship with Molly and Issa are going to work out, and if it's going to be some sneaking around between Lawrence and Issa, and how that is going to implode. Condola is going to freak the freak out, and how that festival for the neighborhood is going to be at jeopardy because none of them can keep their drawers on. But I'm looking forward to it, and I hope if you feel and you have your own insight in the tone and the theme of upcoming episodes are going to go in the upcoming episodes of Insecure, please drop me a line at TNFroIsReading at gmail.com, because I'm interested in what you guys are going to think about what is going to happen coming up shortly. Welcome to this episode or section of the cast, Over 40 and Unapologetically Nerdy, the fourth installment of my Hamilton Heights Passion Project series. In this series, we'll be talking about, or the parts of the series of this episode, is Wings and Calm, Countdown to Thanksgiving, Maurice Becomes a Daddy, and Katt, The Growth of a Star. And I hope you will be as interested in listening to it in its entirety as I've had fun creating it. And thanks. Similar to previous episodes, this will be taking place in 2018, Uptown Harlem. And this is, of course, my passion project, Hamilton Heights, Episode 4, Season of Thanks. For the most part, all three acts will take place in and around Harlem, and this scene is a typical Friday, where the main characters, Katt Sloper and Maurice Townsend, it's a simple Friday night of Korean tacos and hot wings. I'm hopeful to portray a progression in their relationship, because they've been now dating pretty steadily, because this is right around the end of October of 2018. 2018, and the beginning of November of 2018. They've reached a level of maturity, but it is showing signs of wear and restlessness. That's on Maurice's part. Katt is just happy that she's in a relationship, and she's had a significant amount of success in her career, in which she wants to share it with her family and, of course, with Maurice. If you can picture Maurice walking towards the Sloper house, he's going kind of slowly, because he's in no hurry, because he knows it's just going to be another uneventful Friday night. As he turns the corner, there's a food delivery car that pulls away. He pauses for a minute, looking up at the imposing facade of the house, takes a deep breath, and lets out almost a groan. And then you hear from down the street, Marcy and Gabby. They are coming towards him, calling out, "Maurice, Maurice!" looking both ways and catching up to him, laughing. Gabby, she seems to be the most aggressive, pressing her body against his. And this all is taking place not too far from where Katie is setting up in the main library for their Friday night. How do you say it? What they are settling in for a routine Friday night. She hears the commotion because she had just taken the food, and she turns back, looking out of the window, and she peers through, and she tenses up, and she's actually poises her hand over the doorknob, getting ready to snatch it back open, but her maid Mariah touches her arm and says, "They're only words. Besides, all men flirt, and they flirt shamelessly." Katt wills herself not to cry, but she says, "But they are not my words." Mariah says it wouldn't do to pester him about something he can't control. And Katt's like, "But why? Why can't I expect more? Love and faithfulness?" Mariah goes on to say, "But you got the love. Do you need the other to truly be happy?" And Katt says, "Well, I've lived here without love, but I was still happy." And Mariah says, "Well, recognize whatever this is between y'all and promise yourself to live in the moment. Love intensely without the other trappings if they just aren't possible." And Katt, "So if I want to love and happiness, then pursue that?" And Mariah says, "Yes. If he's willing to give it and you give it right back." And Katt says, I need to know also my competition." She peers through the door. And Mariah says, "Well, while on your turf." And then Katt says, "Mariah, what were you doing in the asteroid here? Do you mind setting up this in the study and bringing in service and drinks?" And Mariah says, "For four, no problem." Smiles and turns to set about her work. Katt opens the door widely and calls out to Maurice, almost skipping down the steps. Maurice pauses, his smile vanishing from his face. He's like he's just got caught doing something wrong. And Katt says, "Hey, Marcy and Gabby." Maurice, "I've known them since elementary school." And Marcy says, "Long time no see." And Katt says, "Yeah, I haven't seen you since my show at Phyllis's. How have you been?" And Gabby says, "That's right. I was more interested in your guests," glances at Maurice, than the artwork. Marcy says, "Your gardenias reminded me of your sketches in Mrs. Peace's class in school. You were amazing even back then." And Katt was like, "Thanks, Marcy. They were easy to draw since they grew right out back." And Maurice interrupts, "Well, we should go in. The food should be coming soon." Gabby looks disappointed. Katt's like, "Well, it's already here. Wait, I have some more of my paintings upstairs and some stuff I'm working on for my show at Danow's Midtown Gallery. I would love to show you, and we have plenty of food." Marcy says, "Kind of like a preview. I'm in." And Gabby's like, "I can eat." And then Maurice is like, "Well, let's go up then." The group climbs the stairs, Gabby more intent in following Maurice. Marcy notices the stairway and the opulence of the whole space. She's definitely awestruck. Marcy says, "Growing up just a few streets over, I'd never even been inside your house." And Katt says, "Well, that's my bad. I will make sure you get another invite." Mariah comes in with bottles of beer, cognac, and glasses. And Katt continues, "We have wine and sparkling water, too." And Gabby says, "I'll take a cognac." And then Marcy says, I'm okay. "Hey, did you used to take lessons with Miss Smith? She told my mother to save her money because I had a 10 ear." Marcy walks over to the piano, caressing it, and Katt says, "Yeah, she was a mean old lady with that ruler, but I still play." She takes her glass over to the piano, sitting a coaster on it, and begins to play Moonlight Sonata. Haunting. Maurice sips his cognac, Gabby yawns. Mariah and Marcy are mesmerized. Lavinia coming in and notice all the extra young females. And Lavinia says, "Well, what do we have here? A party." Walks over to the stereo, putting on some Isley Brothers. And then Lavinia says, "Girl, nobody wants your concertos now." And Marcy says, I think that was a sonata." Lavinia, "Well, anyway, here is somebody we can dance to." And Al Green, "Still in Love with You," comes on. She grabs Maurice and they start a pretty skilled two-step. Katt then starts a jazzy instrumental version. Marcy acting like a DJ and fades out the music while Katt continues. Maurice expertly swings Lavinia and takes up with a surprisingly rhythmic Mariah, who continues the boogie to the applause of the younger spectators, who sing out loud. Outside, Ophelia arrives, sees the shadows through the window, listens for a beat at the music and the laughter, gets back in her car, and then says to her driver, "Driver, take me back to the hospital." We see the taillights fading into the twilight, and that's the end of that scene. Now on to Katt and Mariah looking for things stored in the family's attic. Lavinia comes up after hearing laughter and thumps. She brings a baseball bat and she pokes her head over the corner in hand and says, "What the hell is going on up here?" Katt jumps and Katt says, "Aunt Lavinia, we're looking for plates and platters for Thanksgiving." Lavinia says, "I know you're not going to tote all that stuff over to that thief in Elizabeth's house." Katt and Mariah look at each other and they look at the pot calling the kettle. They both know stories of buyback of family pieces from local pawn shops with Lavinia as the ticket holder. Lavinia says, "Well, there ain't nothing else up here." And they glance at each other again. And Mariah says, "Well, you would know," under her breath. "I will take these downstairs and start with polishing the silverware." "What are you up to exactly?" "Thanksgiving dinner here at Chateau Sloper. Invite and promises to be. Standing room only. Lifts top off another crate." And she's like, "Ah, the oyster place. Yes." And she says, "You going all out for this? What does your mama say about all the guests all over and up and through here?" And she says, "I don't know exactly. She's never here during Thanksgiving. Did you notice that? I think she's going to the vineyard with some of her classmates from Columbia." And Lavinia says, "Well, so no Debbie Downer. It may just be a party." And then Katt says, "Take these," hands her some plates. And she says, "You have me working like a runaway slave. Moving, not a good look." And they come stumping down the stairs. As they get to the landing on the first floor, the front bell rings. Katt sets the plates on the entrance table to answer the door. She unlocks and welcomes in Marcy with a hug. And Katt says, "Aunt Lavinia, remember Marcy from the Taco Friday?" Lavinia screws up her face and she says, "Hey, Miss Lavinia," picks up wrapped paintings. "I will get these to the gallery." Katt walks and also hands her plans. And she says, "Also sent the electronic version of the mock-up for the space for Phyllis, just in case she can't open the files. Take these." And Marcy says, "This is going to be a great show. Can't wait to see it all together." Katt says, "I hope so. Don't want to do too much, but still be unique." And then Katt says, "Yeah, that's right. Thanks for coming by. Let's circle back at 3:30 and talk through the reception." Marcy says, "Sounds good. Good seeing you, Miss Lavinia. Bye, y'all." Lavinia stands shocked into silence, starts talking as soon as the doors are closed, and Katt turns, almost knocking oyster plates out of her hands. And Lavinia says, "Why is that shady bitch taking your pictures away? Is she your new best friend? Maurice's side piece, and you can't be that silly." And then Marcy said, and then Katt says, "Marcy's not the shady one, it's Gabby, and who is an art history major in need of a job, and now I need an assistant. My best friend is still marrying, which is kind of sad because she's also my cousin, and Maurice doesn't have a side piece as long as I'm not side piece, as long as I'm not being silly. Now we're finished with the black and the fronted. Let's get these down to Mariah." She picks up the dishes and starts walking towards the back stairs. Lavinia says, "Well, I don't understand why you had to hire her when I'm right here." And Katt says, "Because Lavinia, you know nothing about art and you wouldn't do anything I tell you." And Lavinia says, You don't know what I know, but you're right about that orders thing." And Katt rolls her eyes as they descend down to the kitchen. Then there's another soul food night at Gloria's, which is loosely based on the restaurant Sylvia's, also in Manhattan. Maurice is seated resplendent in his well-cut blazer, sipping his cognac. Katt comes in and shakes hands with the greeter. Maurice notices the owner coming out to greet her and escorts her over to the table. She waves and then is stopped by more people. Maurice smiles, but it's noticeably strained. And you can only guess that he's now tripping because his wilting butterfly now is becoming a great big old star. A shrinking violet is now becoming a star. Maurice stands. My popular girlfriend finally arrives. The owner of Gloria says, Miss Sloper, thanks for dining. I will make sure to send over some creme brulee and a box of some beignets to go. Enjoy. And nodding, taking his leave. And Katt says, thanks so much. You guys are always so amazing. The owner nods at first at Katt and then at Maurice. Another waiter appears, fills Katt's glass with water, and then pours her a glass of white wine. And Katt says, I'm so glad we are here. This is one of my favorite spots in the city. And Maurice says, I can't believe you never have been here before 6 months ago. And Katt says, yeah, not much cost before. And then Maurice says, I still think Mariah's fish cakes are better. And Katt says, yum, real butter, salmon to breadcrumb ratio, which she makes herself 10-1. Maurice smiled, which is more relaxed. I ordered the shrimp toast and crab cakes. And Katt reaches out her hand and says, I'm so sorry I made you wait. Maureen leans forward and grasps her hand. Well, nah, it's okay. This place is not a black place to wait. They raise their glasses and toast each other. Katt takes a sip. This is perfectly dry. What are we celebrating today? And then Maurice says, 3 successful shows in 4 months, a feature in art and toast in NYC, garden segment on News 12. Come on. And Katt says, the garden show is on a weekend edition. Do you know Lavinia's tripping about that? And Maurice says, oh my, I can only imagine how they're keeping her off screen in one of her flowy Blanche get-ups. And Katt sniffles a laugh and looks at Maurice adoringly. Katt says, the piece on the co-op was amazing. And Maurice says, Curtis Quintus and none are walking around like Malcolm X meets Anderson Cooper still. And he smiles. Oh my, no, boss vegetable, giggling. It has been a lot of fun doing it all. I'm busy and tired, but I'm having so much fun. How crazy is that? Maurice says, that's not crazy at all. I still remember your mom freaking out about possible bugs and the flowers on the table at dinner. Yeah, the dark old days at Chateau Sloper. You know, I haven't had dinner with her since then. And Maurice says, that's 8 months ago. We have Sunday dinner there. I noticed she's never there. Yeah, she goes to church, then brunch with friends from her church, First Baptist of Park Slope, of course. And Maurice says, why, she's being all bougie, whole different. While she gives being bougie a whole different dimension. Yep, my mother is who she is. Is it really that bad? And Katt says, yeah, before the night, I hadn't had a meal with her in like 4 years. I usually eat in the kitchen or in the garden with Mariah or Aunt Lavinia. If she is home, she has takeout salad from a deli near the hospital. But you have a garden out back and the co-op has salads to go, for real? Katt says, takes a sip of her wine and shrugs her shoulders. She hasn't noticed, but probably also doesn't know we supply the ingredients to her takeout salad to all the delis in the bordellos near her hospital. And she doesn't know about how well your shows went. I haven't told her, and if anyone has, she would never let me know. If she isn't paying for it, why acknowledge the success? But surely she would give you your props. Doubtful. I stopped craving her approval or attention a long time ago because I know she would never be happy for me because it's me. Surely she wouldn't be that harsh. Yeah, she would. I've known all my life my mother doesn't like me very much. And Maurice sits back and says, why? My first clear memory is my mother screaming at me and calling me stupid girl. And she and Aunt Lavinia blaming me because my brother took that bullet meant for crackhead Dan for me. With Aunt Lavinia, she's simple enough to deal with. But after that day, I ceased to exist for my mother. It really as if I died with my brother that day. Maurice sits back at the enormity of it all. A waiter approaches and he says, ready to order. Katt smiles, picking up the wine glass, pouring more into Maurice's glass and hers. No, we need a few more minutes. I'll bring out some bread and he takes his leave. Katt says, thanks, it's way too heavy. Let's talk about something happy. Oh, Thanksgiving. Maurice says, that's right. What does she think about Thanksgiving? And Katt's like, my mother, she's not going to be there. She goes to the vineyard with classmates every Thanksgiving. And she takes out her phone and starts swiping. And Katt says, let's see. Uncle Curtis is on the turkey. Aunt Liz is on the yams. I got the green salad, deviled eggs, vegetable dumplings. Marion is on dessert and stuffing. Uncle Quintus and Nut on clams and oysters. And I found my grand's oyster plates. Maurice says, and I will be bringing the cognac and wine. Katt, and your appetite. And Maurice says, sounds good. My sister is really excited about coming too. Yes, Clarissa and your nieces are so nice. She's bringing her famous egg potato salad and oyster dressing. Yeah, my gran used to make those dishes. That's what she said. I can't wait for everyone to meet them. Also, Mariah and her cousin are coming. And she's bringing her fish cakes. And Marcy is coming without Gabby. Maurice looks guilty of something and chokes on his wine a little bit. The waiter brings the bread and softened butter. Marcy is an amazing assistant, works hard and is smart, and I can trust her. Maurice says, so she will not be with her shadow Gabby, huh? And Katt's like, nope, Gabby and her hands will be with her family safely in Yonkers. Seeming not to notice, Maurice stiffened. Maurice says, and picks up his glass, draining the rest of the champagne. It should be a good meal, good time. And she says, I'm looking forward to it. And she says, raises her glass and says, good food, family, and love, we will have it all. The waiter approaches and Katt picks up her menu, ordering. Maurice sits stiffly and says more to himself, but do we really want it? And then the end of the scene and it fades to black. Then the scene comes up again on dinner at Casa Slope, where it's like mid-afternoon. There's just so much movement in and out of the Sloper household. The prior day, there's delivery of some fruit from the co-op and the wine store. Maurice is helping bring in the boxes. You see Katt picking collards and washing and cutting them, actually from her own garden. She's teaching Marcy and Maurice how to stuff and hand twist a dumpling, lots of laughter and wine drinking. Mariah and her cousin washing and drying plates and glasses and polishing silverware. Lavinia trying on and checking herself in the mirror. She's nowhere near the kitchen. Aunt Elizabeth, Curtis, Marion playfully battling for space in their kitchen in Sugar Hill. And you can hear the typing in the background because I'm adding stuff and editing. Then the next day, people started arriving on Thanksgiving. The almonds arrive with equipment to fry up a turkey. Uncle Curtis heads out back with the equipment and the peanut oil. He and Maurice setting it up. Maurice expertly injecting the seasoned mixture under the skin into the large bird. He and Curtis lowers the bird into the heated peanut oil with a controlled and satisfied sizzle. Lavinia lounges upstairs on an antique fainting couch. Katt greets Miss Montgomery. It's Miss Montgomery and not Mrs. And her daughters at the lower level entrance. Lavinia opening and pouring herself wine and dancing around the dining room, the set table. We see Quintus and Nut arrive with baskets of clams and oysters and are cleaning and shucking the oysters in the back because they walk through the downstairs entrance. Katt, Mariah, Aunt Elizabeth start handing around the plates of freshly shucked oysters, and everyone adds horseradish and the vinaigrette. Lavinia sees the oysters and then she swirls down the outside stairs. She says, man, I'm hungry. I could eat a bushel of these. Grabs a plate and starts slurping up oysters. Quintus says, sister, MIA while we're cleaning these. And here you are, right on time. Quintus and Nut side-eyeing each other, shaking their heads. Lavinia, well, I didn't want to be in the way. And Mariah says, oh, Lavinia, there is still a lot to bring upstairs and plate. And she takes a seat. Yeah, I'll leave it to the professionals. Elizabeth says, seriously, Lavinia? And she grabs Lavinia. But she had cleared 8 oysters in record time. And she's like, what? And then Katt's best Jersey monster accent, forget about it. There's laughter. Takes up wine glass. Thank everybody for coming. Let's eat and drink and this be blessed. And all together response, hear, hear. Everyone starts passing around and eating the freshly struck oysters with laughter. Katt is laughing at the same time circling around Maurice. Marcy floats between them and Mary and Mariah. Miss Montgomery chats with Nut and Quintus. She'd gone to school with them, and they seem to be getting along wonderfully. Mariah enlists the help of the young people, and they start taking dishes upstairs. Uncle Curtis and Maurice have been taking turns tending the turkey, and when the internal temperature reached a perfect 165 degrees Fahrenheit, they lift it out, setting it on a pan with the lifted strainer to allow it to rest and catch the drippings. Carefully take it upstairs to a waiting side table with carving knives. Everyone else finish cleaning up the empty shelves and plate stack, start dishing out the dishes, staring and moving up the back stairs to the dining room. Lavinia slurping up the last half dozen before bouncing up the stairs behind the turkey. The dining table extended and extra chairs for family-style dinner. There's food down the center of a beautifully set table, carrots of wine every 2 persons, and moved of teenagers seated near it. The head of the table is empty with the turkey in a place of honor at the back nearest the buffet, with additional side dishes kept warm in silver warmers. Curtis uses a knife against the glass tinkling. Before we get to it, will Quintus lead us in prayer? Quintus, decked out in his embroidered kofi and dashiki, gets a serious look and says, good family, good meat, good Lord, look at that turkey, let's eat. The table erupts in laughter and yell, and everybody yells, amen. Curtis had partially carved breasts and starts passing out pieces of meat on Katt's dishes. Everyone is taking out servings of side dishes and commenting on how good everything is between bites. Elizabeth leans over to Katt and says, are you having fun, Katt? And then Katt says, oh yes, Aunt Elizabeth, I love having Thanksgiving at your house, but I'm glad we had it here this year. And Elizabeth says, I love hosting, but it's good to have a little break. And then Clarice Montgomery says, I'm so thankful for the invite and having the best turkey in NYC. Everyone turns and toasts Curtis. He stands and takes a dramatic bow. Mariah says, I'm thankful that I get to work in this house that I love and be with family, and nods to her cousin and sees 3 generations of this family doing it damn well. And Lavinia says, go ahead, Miss Mariah. More laughter, most of the plates empty of food. Everyone starts rising, taking plates and serving dishes back downstairs, scraped and loaded in the dishwasher and waiting for the cycle to end. Mariah and her cousin empty the coffee into several carafes with different family members take upstairs to serve dessert and then fill with fresh coffee grounds and more water started. Maurice comes close to Marcy and Maurice says, hey, and Marcy says, oh, hey, Maurice, wasn't today great? And Maurice says, yeah, sure. It's like that first time you and Gabby crashed. Have you seen her? And then Marcy says, not really, not since that night we had tequila shots at Rallies in Queens. You know, I haven't seen her much since then. We used to grab a bite to eat on my way to work, but she begged off because of her stomach being upset. Marcy then turned, leaving Maurice with his face tight, staring after her. Mariah hears and sees the exchange also, and they fade out. And then, sidewalk cafe, it's like mid-afternoon. Katt, Marcy, and Phyllis Myers are walking along Gansford Street after a meeting at the Whitney, chatting about a variety of things. As they near Pastis from across the street, Marcy notices Gabby seated at a table with Maurice and Dr. Sloper. I think I need to preface this and say is all of this is happening within a very short period of time. The first scene, if I'm correct, is probably, as I said, like mid to late October, and then they fast forward to Thanksgiving week, and this last scene is more than likely right the week after Black Friday or the first week in December. And because we will find out very soon of Katt's plan to tour first England, and then she's going to wind up, and I'm still working on this, wind up in Hamburg or Berlin. But Marcy sees Gabby with Maurice and Katt's mom at one of the outside tables at Pastis. And Pastis back in the day was the place to go to be seen in the meatpacking district over by where the Whitney is. And it also makes sense now that the Whitney is there, but there are also other single galleries, independently run galleries also in that area, I believe at this time. And Marcy pauses mid-sentence when she spots them, just in progression, and says, "That can't be good." Katt notices Maurice, calls out to him, waving. She looked both ways before crossing, breaking the traffic, and Marcy and Phyllis follow behind. Katt pauses as she takes in Gabby's hand on Maurice's arm, and then Gabby sits back, placing the other hand protectively over her stomach. And Katt noticed her obvious baby bump.
It's an idea. I need to talk to Stacy.
And Katt gasped a little, the realization dawning. "Well, I didn't know. Congrats, Gabby. Do you know what you're having?" And then Dr. Sloper says, "You have to be kidding me. Girl, I was having a late lunch, and guess who I was walking? Guess who I see walking arm in arm, coming out of Pastis but these two? He had been screwing this whore," and then points to Gabby, "right under your stupid nose. You naive little girl. Katt it's not what it looks like." This is Maurice panicking. And Katt says, "Yeah, I think it's exactly what it looks like," she says coldly. Gabby says, "Funny, I met him at your first show." And then Marcy says, "Oh, shut up, Gabby. You really can't be this trashy." And then Maurice says, shrugging out of Gabby's grasp, and says, "You were working all the time, making new friends, going to all those gatherings. You kind of ghosted me." And Katt was like, "You were with me everywhere. What more did you want from me? And now you're trying to flip this, make it my fault that you couldn't keep your pants zipped? Really?" And then Maurice is like, "The further you went, I was being left behind. I needed you, just like when I first met you at Aunt Liz's." Katt is off the chain, pissed off, and says, "She is not your aunt. Curtis is not your uncle. I can't sweat you and still do my work. I just can't." And then Katt says, "I think we should go." And she had already messaged probably the driver to come and pick them up. And then she says,
report on humanoid cultures.
"Your tour of England is coming at a good time." And then Dr. Sloper says, "England? Are you going away, Catherine?" And Katt says, "Yes, Mother. My last few shows did so well. A group in London wants me there for an extended tour, and I've booked a few shows. That's who I was meeting with at the Whitney." And then she turns to Maurice, looking down her nose at Gabby. "You know, Maurice, I was thinking about not going because I wanted to spend our first Christmas and New Year's here in New York with you. And now here you go with this bullshit." Maurice steps closer, tries to grasp her arms. "Katt, if you let me explain." And Katt's like, "Explain what? What can you explain?" Looks at him up and down. "That's right. You can't say shit to get out of this." A car pulls up. Phyllis and Marcy step forward and put their arms around Katt, directing her to the car. And Katt turns and addresses her mother. "See, Mother, you were right. He really ain't shit and was going to hurt me. And you and Aunt Olivia get the house all to yourself. You can be satisfied for once." Phyllis and Marcy help her into the car, both of them getting into either side, and the car pulls away. And I knew I had to make this really dramatic And I would love to celebrate Black love, but I don't know how to write that because I have no examples of that in my personal life. But I knew I had to make it. I wanted to stay close to Henry James's storyline and how Katt actually goes overseas for an extended tour. But I also wanted it to be pivotal that there had to be a dramatic break with Maurice. And this is just so typical. This story, the storyline that I've actually come up with in this part 4 is not unlike what so many women go through every single day with some of these men. How people stay in relationships even after the men have babies on them. They know that they're cheating, etc., etc. This is apropos for that. But it's not going to stop her from continuing to live and to go on. And instead of her mother being supportive of the shenanigans, she absolutely seems to be almost miffed that the girl is getting ready to leave, and she had the audacity to wake up, and their relationship is just so broken, and you always wonder how can they or have any type, how can they move on from there, and is it a requirement that you actually have to have a relationship with a parent? I'm not sure if it's going to be that toxic. It's probably best not to try to create something that is obviously not going to be beneficial to your mental health. But she does a good job. And we see, again, another stage as Catherine enters another stage of her life when she basically drops Maurice on his ass and she takes off for a tour of England. Very close to, as I said, to the Washington Square, where she goes yearning for Maurice. But this is different because this particular Catherine ain't got time for that, and she ain't got that time of support. And she knows that this Catherine seems to me knows that she has options, and she is opting to be successful in the face of tragedy. And that's what I'm hopeful that people will continue to root for Katt and see how she builds her life after the hurt and the pain of finding out not only did your boyfriend cheat on you, but he's getting ready to have a kid with somebody else. And it was at the show that they met. Ain't that some shit? Crazy. This podcast is my path of entertainment and a form of therapy and an outlet for creative freedom. But if you don't have this outlet and you're struggling with depression, anxiety, or addiction, call 1-800-273-8255. It's available 24 hours a day, every day. And there's also an on-site chat feature at suicidepreventionlifeline.org/chat/. If vodka is your problem, call 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. Then there's also apps like Talkspace and Doctor on Demand that will actually be able to help you right where you are in the privacy of your car at a fraction of the cost of conventional therapy. It's okay not to be okay, and it's definitely okay to ask for help. Please navigate to www.Dale's Angels Inc. for all special offers and updates on nerd news, as well as you can drop me a line at TennesseeFroisReading@gmail.com or even leave me a 2-minute non-trolling message at 423-463-0658. All non-trolling messages may actually be read or played during the podcast. If you like what you're hearing and you want to support continued great content, please become a patron at podbean.com/thetalkingfro or put $5 on it and leave me a tip at PayPal. bit.me/Felicia DAI. And I hope you have enjoyed this podcast as much as I have enjoyed creating.